I'm Dave. I'm a certified Cicerone and home brewer, and I'm with my friend Geno.
Howdy.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, pleasure.
This is Beer Room 101, where we discuss the pleasure of beer and the worst things in the world. Today we're going to talk about a watermelon wheat ale. And this one comes to us locally from LA Ale Works, and it's called Wheatermelon. And I thought it would be appropriate to wear my watermelon watch from Studio Underdog, just because I happen to have it. And it seemed appropriate seeing as we've kind of crossed into the second half of the summer. It's nice and hot here. So the base style of this beer is an American wheat beer, which is distinct from a German Hefeweizen. They do have some similarities, as you know, but German Hefeweizens or Weiss beers are different in that they get their flavor mostly from the yeast in the beer. Okay. And in terms of that, it would be the spiciness or phenolic qualities. You don't really get that with American wheat ales. What you get more of is hop flavor, and because the grain bill of this particular style is 30 to 50% wheat, you get sort of a bready, sort of a malt flavor that comes through, which is maybe a little bit balanced towards sweetness. And then watermelon in this case, because it's a fruited ale, is added for flavor. Anyway, I'm gonna try it.
All right, go right in with you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, so I like that it's a real subtle watermelon tone, like you mentioned in there. Yeah. They kind of just add it in there at the end, and it does have kind of like similar on the nose, like you said, like breadiness to almost like when you have like bubbles in a like a nice like a fun champagne or maybe a prosecco. You know. Yeah. So it's good. Yeah. Nice. And
I'd heard someone describe this as having this Jolly Rancher watermelon candy type of flavor, and I don't think it's quite that strong.
Yeah, I don't think it comes off that sweet to me, which I like. Yeah. I've had probably something like closer to maybe that, like you're describing with that profile I've had before, is we used to have a watermelon habanero cider. I can't remember what it was back at when I was working at Rustic Kitchen. I can't remember the name of
Honest Abe.
Honest Abe, thank you. That was what it's been bugging me for them. Like, what was the name? Because I've had, and that to me has probably more, if you want more of like a prominent, like really like you're saying, like they kind of close to like candy-like sweet, Yeah. But it's good. Like one or two in a hot day is nice. But this I feel like you can have a couple more of, and like it's a bit more subtle. It doesn't kind of overpower, which is cool, which is good.
Something that you see this time of year, which I really quite enjoy, a lot of beers that are fruited, and American wheat ale is a great base style for that. You also see that with blonde ales, American blonde ales, and cream ales. And there are some really fun things that can happen. Last year at Southern California Home Brewers Festival, I came across one that was a cream ale that tasted like Takis chips, those real red colored looking corn chips.
I think I know it. Do they have like a cone shape? Yeah. Okay. All right. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's unique. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a nice, those three styles are definitely a nice canvas for something fruited or going real nuts. chip flavored.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
If you're so inclined.
like when we get more closer to fall, like anything orange flavored and stuff, that
Yeah.
really, or apples too. I love.
Yeah.
Those are some of my, up there for me.
Sure. So here's the Beer Room 101 question. Should dogs be allowed in tasting rooms?
Yeah. So dogs. I love dogs to death. Obsessed with them, probably more than humans, if I'm being frank. But so yeah, I mean, I've worked in a bunch of restaurants, and as you know, and definitely within the last, I'd say, 10 years or so, I've noticed more, prominently people have been bringing their dogs and pets, which I personally love and enjoy.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of how I view if they should be allowed in rooms or should be in restaurants, it too is like a broader question.
Yeah.
I think there's certain things and factors that just need to be considered, and I'm not saying owners are necessarily being irresponsible either by saying it, but like one is like obviously making sure that your dog's gonna be disciplined and safe, and isn't gonna cause probably up there at number one.
Yeah.
I recall I had an instance one time where there was a dog, it was a rescue, and nothing against rescues, of course. Just they had actually lunged. It was a big German Shepherd. It lunged at me and almost attacked me. And the owner luckily pulled it in time.
Wow.
And I mean, yeah, it got a little, and it's just one of those things that if I'd been like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, then like that could get really scary or
traumatic.
Traumatic. Yeah, and like a lot of or heaven forbid worse.
Sure.
In those ways. So obviously that's number one, and two is like another thing I just think of is is just kind of allergies for some other guests or people and individuals. I know I have some friends who are like I have one friend, he is very, very allergic to dogs to where like he even had a hypoallergenic dog as a kid, and it still gave him issues. So I mean, I'm sure those cases aren't, I'm sure those are probably rarer cases for the most part. I don't know. I don't have the complete knowledge on allergies and in that sense there, but I mean, I think those are just like kind of factors to keep in mind when going in if you're bringing your pet over. It's just something I think there, and maybe too, like for going forward, I think now with more like modern restaurants when they're designing, something that I had a thought on is just like thinking of ways that you could perhaps design the restaurant to have sections for people with their dogs, and then too, that way maybe even too, you have like areas where I've seen certain restaurants where dogs can play and stuff. And, but again, it's each dog is different, just like each human's different.
Sure.
So it's you're your pet better than I do. So I mean, I'm trusting you to bring, when you're bringing your pet around me and other,
Right. I think you raised a really good point with the areas that could be set aside for people visiting with their dogs. There's a place locally we like to go. We like their beer very much, and dogs are allowed, with the caveat that they be well behaved, and of course, and they encourage people to keep them outside.
Yeah.
But it's like many things here in Southern California, it becomes an indoor-outdoor space, and that is not clearly delineated, and the more people you have in a space like that, the even less clear it kind of becomes. In some cases, and I know everybody who's a dog owner probably loves their dog, and you would probably give it the highest marks for behavior, but I have seen visitors come in with their dogs and just have them plop down in the middle of the traffic way and flow for people to go up to the bar to order or go outside or the restroom, and just to be fine with that, and just, well, you know, it's just doing what it does. And I don't blame the dog for that too much. I just kind of think that it's a little inconsiderate. Or something happening, then this happened recently, where I went up to order a beer, and I felt the dog's nose going up my shorts. And
trying to find some snacks or something.
Would have been disappointed. I think the dog. Anyhow,
there's nothing in these pockets either.
No leftover chips or anything. Nothing of that sort. But I immediately turned to the dog's owner, and he just, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So at least. There was that, but I kind of just didn't want it to happen. This is outside of drinking establishments and things, but I once walked down to the mailbox, and there was a guy coming down the other way on the sidewalk, and his dog bit me.
Oh man.
Just not provoked or anything. Just because it bit me, and then he told me, the owner told me, that the dog didn't bite me, and that his dog doesn't bite. I think I don't mean to be too vitriolic about this, because I would never do that. I think there could be, in some cases, a little bit of a psychosis that some dog owners have, and maybe it could, you know, also be true with children. Also, that you know, they're angels. They you know.
We all have our biases. And
well, let me ask you this: you know LA pretty well, and but like me, you're not a native, but have been here plenty of time. Do you think that LA is kind of a dog favored city at all?
Well, there's certain elements that would make it, you'd say, as dog friendly. I would guess. I mean, certainly, you know, there's like so I'm originally from Ohio, originally from Cleveland, and at least the spots that I had worked at were probably more like newer, modern, if you will, as restaurants. And ever since I started working in the industry, like back in 2015 on and off, like I've regularly interacted with dogs. So that's been in Ohio, Kansas, when I lived in Kansas for you know, and then even here in LA too, you know, regularly. So I mean, probably in some sense, I think here some of the things I see is there's probably been more innovative ways of incorporating dogs into restaurants. So going kind of back to like having restaurants with like spaces for dogs to kind of play in, for instance, and like having those wide areas. Like I've seen, I've seen certain restaurants, like not just in LA, but like kind of across the state, where, you know, they have spots where, you know, dogs can kind of frolic and play. Also too, I'd say like there's, like in my current spot, we have like a dog bratwurst that a dog can get that's dog friendly. So like there's things like that. So I mean, I love having the dog be part of the family and joining and being that, you know. So I mean, it's fun, and it's fun when you get to do that. And I mean, I love seeing all the dogs and pups. It's just, you know, there's just other going back to what you mentioned with like your instance of like the dog just kind of laying around on the ground there. There's other instances too, like fire hazards and like also health that you get, like especially it's a big health code thing that you need to be careful with dogs. So, you know, or like, you know, making sure that we, like I had one time where there was a guest that came in and they brought in just their two there were two small dogs, and started feeding the dogs in the restaurant, and it was just very, by all means, like, we can give you a space outside if you need to feed them or something. I'm happy to try and accommodate. It's just if you could communicate with me first, I'll try to see if we could figure out a solution to make it work. Just maybe you can just talk to me about,
Yeah.
So it's just, if you encounter that with your server, all I ask is just please understand, like, a lot of the things we might ask you is just mainly to maintain health code and make sure we're not getting you or anyone else sick, or and we love pets too. Just want to kind of throw that out there as a thing, just to, so everyone's being safe, and we're trying to create a harmonious space for everyone, so that's all.
Sounds good. What would you pair this, speaking of eating and things, what food would you pair with this beer?
Yeah, so there's generally with, I guess, a lot of philosophies when it comes to pairing, and you can either think of things that are kind of close or similar to the product you're drinking, or a little bit's fine.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. And or if you want to go on like a contrasting route too, is like kind of like generally the two principles. The first thing I always tell people is drink and eat what you like and you enjoy. You know your palate better than I do, so but just the general things that pop in my head. One of the things I thought was like a nice, wonderful like watermelon salad with like maybe some feta cheese and like some minced cucumber, and like maybe like some souvlaki chicken, like very like Mediterranean fresh, like kind of like a nice refreshing, especially during the time of the year, like we're mentioning, you're probably drinking this closer a lot of times to summer when it's a little hotter out, so a little like nice lighter meal than that. Another route that I thought too is you can kind of go, I like anything that has like a hint of sweetness or freshness to like to go with a little bit of like sweet and spicy combos a lot. So like if you wanted like some nice crispy wings, I'm thinking, and you got like a sweet chili kind of going with it.
That's a great
nice idea. And then too, I mean, the ABV I'm imagining isn't extremely high, so like that's just kind of one of the things when you're drinking like or eating spicy foods to kind of limit, or the lower the ABV, it helps to not like amplify the spice in the food, so it's good.
I was thinking of kind of looking at the intensity of this beer, which it is not that intense, and part of that is that it does not have a high ABV, and
very subtle. I like it.
So I was thinking of something like a Fugazeta, which is an Argentinian double crusted pizza that is stuffed with cheese. And you can kind of have your own way with the cheese, but the couple of times I've made it, I used provolone and mozzarella and just shingle it into the dough, cover it up, and then you thinly slice sweet onions into very thinly sliced rings and top the pizza with that.
Oh, wonderful.
So when you bake it, it comes out with those rings being a little bit charred.
Oh, okay.
Just a little bit.
I gotcha.
And caramelized.
Wonderful.
And what that little bit of char kind of makes me think about is being outside, eating, and it's also something fun to eat. I have been thinking a lot about this lately. That char is kind of a way of I would even go so far as to say that it might be slightly refreshing.
Yeah, it has an element. I know what you're talking about with almost like the it almost has like a bitter element to it. In which, when you have like one of my favorite cocktail is a Negroni because it has like that Campari bitterness to it to kind of brush your palate. Kind of similar in that manner. But I know what you're talking about with the char. It also it gives it like a nice homey feel, and like it makes me think of like when you're talking about char too, I think of like bonfires or like grilling out in the summers growing up as a kid, like
The smell of charcoal.
the smoke. Yeah, the saying. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it sounds like it's a fugazeta. Sounds a little. Is it like kind of close to like a calzone in a lot of ways?
It
then
is.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so like an Argentinian calzone. That sounds amazing. So
Yeah, but at minimum it has the double crust cheese. And
see.
And then the onions, but you can do things like add spinach. And
I got you. Yeah, it's a
veggies and
kind of go with the fresher route with their lighter and
exactly.
Yeah, that'd be
exactly.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please like and subscribe. And if you didn't agree with any of the opinions expressed here, go start your own YouTube channel.